Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. Just like the 1970s and perhaps up until the early 1980s are regarded as the golden age of roots reggae, the 1990s are rated as the peak period of dancehall, or at least the electronic variant popularly referred to as Reggae. It was the era when dancehall gained real global acceptance, all thanks to the rise of a constellation of insanely talented, colorful, and explosive dancehall artists like Shabba Ranks, Bounty Killer, Ninja Man, and the subject of today's video in the legendary Supercat. Even out of the elite field of dancehall DJs who ruled that epoch, no other artist could match the swag, flow, and charisma of the Cool Cat, the Don Dada from Kingston 11. And when you consider the quality of his contemporaries, that is a very bold statement to make. At his peak, he was the most recognizable due to his exquisite fashion sense, often decked out in his trademark top hat and three-piece suits, complete with a cigar and a walking stick. He often caught the figure of your quintessential gangster from the classic Hollywood movies. His look wasn't the only thing that set him apart though. At a time when his peers devoted most of their lyrics to endless references to their sexual prowess or the allure of pum pum, Supercat was inclined to more serious themes like political commentary and the plight of suffering people in the ghettos. He exploded into the limelight in the mid-1980s and went on to international prominence after a few years, quickly becoming one of the most in-demand dancehall DJs for collaborations with American hip-hop and R&B superstars. Along with Shabba Ranks, Supercat was also among the first to pioneer the fusion of reggae and hip-hop/R&B that became the rave in the 1990s. He went on to become one of the biggest Jamaican artists of the decade, inspiring a whole new generation of Jamaican stars that would build on his international exploits by cementing dancehall as the truly global sound. But just as suddenly as he had shot into prominence, Supercat dropped out of circulation as well as the music business in a very unexpected way. Let's take a look at the story of the magnificent Supercat. He was born William Mara on June 25, 1963, to an Indian father and Jamaican mother, and his first cousin to Marcia Griffiths. He grew up in Seavright Gardens, popularly known as Cockburn Pen, in Kingston 11, which was one of the toughest neighborhoods in the Jamaican capital. It was an area that was overflowing with rude boys, but also an environment that was famous for producing some of dancehall's greatest superstars, like the great U-Roy, Prince Jazzbo, as well as Josie Wales, and Supercat's future friend and sometimes rival, Ninja Man. By the age of 3, his parents noticed that he was always drawn to the radio, listening to music all day. And by the age of 7, he had started sneaking out of the house to go listen to sound system DJs at the neighborhood events, and also loved to hang out in front of record stores where the blaring speakers would play the latest music. In his neighborhood, the average youth's options were very few, but rather than pursue a life of crime, he made up his mind to become a musician by the time he hit his teens. He began as an apprentice to dancehall legend Ranking Trevor, who was at the time just finishing his own apprenticeship with the great U-Roy. As a young teenager, he worked as an assistant for various sound systems, helping to set up speakers and equipment as they moved around from place to place playing shows. And over time, he began to try his hands on the microphone. In those early days, he used to imitate dancehall legend DJ Big Youth and became known in his neighborhood by the stage name Kata Rock, or sometimes Wild Apache. But just as he was coming into his own, he fell victim to the political problems plaguing Jamaica at the time. By the time he was 17, the island had been rocked by political violence for years, prompting the government to impose a curfew in Kingston. Unfortunately, he was hanging out in the streets one night after the curfew had expired and was among several youth who were arrested in a massive police raid. He and all the others were sent to the General Penitentiary in Kingston in 1980, where they all served time for several months. Despite the obvious setback, he since credited that experience for his eventual success as a musician. He not only got tons of inspiration that would go into his songs, but after his fellow inmates consistently made fun of his stage name Kata Rock, which sounded like cataract, he changed his stage name to Supercat. After getting out of jail in 1981, he went straight back into the sound system scene and quickly made a name for himself, DJing at small sound systems like Soul Imperial and Crystal Blue. His superb talent earned him a role with Jamaica's King Sound System in the legendary Kilimanjaro. And as one of the DJs at that sound system, which was already great, Kilimanjaro became unbeatable and won every single sound clash it got into with other outfits for almost 10 years. His exploits with Kilimanjaro caught him noticed by ace producer Winston Riley of Techniques Records. Riley caught up with Supercat one day and approached him to come and record a song that he had heard him sing at Sound Systems called Mr. Walker. Supercat was at first reluctant to record, as Jamaican producers were notorious for making tons of money and paying the artists peanuts, but he gave it a try and the gamble paid off. Mr. Walker was well received and marked the start of his career as a recording artist. He was still a hot-smoking dancehall DJ at Kilimanjaro alongside his old friend Early B when he released his debut album Siboobs Day in 1985, which was produced by a dream team of King Jammy and Winston Riley with Bobby Digital as studio engineer. His debut was followed the next year by the album Boobs in 1986, before releasing his next album 2 years later with Sweets for My Sweet in 1988 under his own label Wild Apache Productions. He also collaborated with his then mentor Nicodemus and Junior Demus for a joint album called Cabin Stabbing in 1990. He was by all standards a hot artist and was now heavily in demand for overseas shows and traveled abroad frequently, especially the UK and the US. After a lengthy time in the US, he met a young lady and got married, eventually settling in New York in 1990. He was then one of Jamaica's unbeatable DJs, and this would lead to a rivalry with his old friend from Seabright Gardens in Ninja Man, who was also unbeatable and had defeated Shabba Ranks at the Sting Music Festival in 1990. So the stage was set for one of the most anticipated dancehall DJ battles at 1991 Sting, and the clash between Supercat and Ninja Man has gone down as one of the greatest sound clashes in dancehall history, with killer lyrics flying from both ends, until fans started throwing bottles at Supercat and abruptly ended that duel. A year after moving to the US, Supercat would get into some legal trouble as he was accused of murdering fellow dancehall star Nitty Gritty, but was later cleared by the police. In 1992, Supercat bagged a record deal with Columbia Records and released his classic album Don Dada in the same year. It's regarded as his finest work and boasts of killer tracks like the banging Ghetto Red Hot, Dem No Worry We featuring Jamaican-American hip-hop star Heavy D, and Dolly My Baby, which featured a then upcoming US Jamaican rapper, the Notorious B.I.G. The album was a perfect blend of dancehall and hip-hop. It did well in the US charts and was followed by a massive tour of Japan and North America. He would return the next year with an album alongside Nicodemus, Junior Demus, and his younger brother Junior Cat, called The Good, The Bad, The Ugly, and The Crazy, and his third album for Columbia, titled The Struggle Continues, came out in 1995. He would go on to collaborate with the likes of hip-hop duo Criss Cross and rock band Sugar Ray before the end of the 1990s, which turned out to be a very successful decade for the Cat. In those days, he inspired hundreds or even thousands of upcoming Jamaican artists to aspire towards global success, and one of them was Sean Paul, who modeled his style and voice almost identically after Supercat, and would achieve sterling success at the beginning of the 2000s with his album Dirty Cup. But the new millennium brought some new challenges for the Don Dada. After slowing down on bringing out new music, trying to acclimatize to the rapidly changing sound of dancehall, he partnered with US production team The Neptunes, who signed him to their Arista Records imprint Star Trek in 2002 and paid him a huge advance fee. But before work on his album could really start, his longtime manager and friend Fred Donner passed away, leaving Supercat devastated. He lost the will and the heart to continue music and refunded the advance paid to him by Arista Records before stepping away from the limelight and the music business for almost 10 years. During this time away, the likes of Sean Paul, with the almost identical vocal style, kept Supercat on the fans' minds. However, in 2013, it was his old pal Shaggy who would drag him back into the limelight after convincing him to make a cameo appearance at a Hot 97 FM reggae event. It was the sort of encouragement that he needed, and his cameo was a major hit with the fans, leading to the floodgates being thrown wide open as show promoters started scrambling to book him for events. In that same year, he returned to Jamaica for the 30th anniversary of the Sting Music Festival and played several shows all across the US by the end of that year. By 2014, he had performed at several massive reggae festivals in Europe like Rototom, Roma Red Hot, and Reggae Gill. The Don Dada turned 60 this year and is still very busy touring and performing to his multitude of fans in numerous reggae concerts all over the globe. He still hasn't lost any of his swag and his voice is still superb. The rumor mills have it that he's been working on an album that may be released this year, and if we know anything about Supercat, we can expect an exceptional body of music that will remind us old fans and even teach the new ones, while they call Supercat the Don Dada. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.